Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? I swear I cleared my throat before I started. Took 3 drinks. I don't know. So here's our little project. And I'm not going to say too much yet until it's time for class. Anybody joining in the chat tonight? Let's see. Here in New Hampshire, it is. It was a sunny day, but it was windy and about 26. So with the wind chill factor, I don't know, maybe it was 3. No, maybe 10. I don't know how they figure that out. So tonight is just some scraps. If you have some leftovers from a jelly roll, you can use those. I used 4 colors. I cut 2 ahead because I was going to show again for someone that has the little Gemini Go that they can use these some of these strip dies also. Hi, Gloria. Got your machine all out and ready to go? We're using the strip die set, or if you have the Build-A-Block Plus, it has rectangles in it. You could actually use that. But if you have both, this would be the preferred one. Let me just check my other camera before we get started. Okay, looks good. I think I got it so it stays. I fiddled around with it so it stays in, excuse me, in focus. If you look at the bobbin or the needle plate, I have it focused on the little bobbin, so that should be away from. Let's see. So see, if I move my finger, nothing happens. But if I come over here, see how it gets cloudy? Look at that. So we should be good to go tonight. Oh, just watching tonight, Gloria? That's good. I think that sometimes that's the thing to do. Just sit back and watch. Now, each week when we do something, I've been taking whatever sample that we have and I've been putting it into the sleeve of the resource book. So maybe you guys are keeping a resource book and doing the same. Excuse me. So that if you're watching and you're making some notes, you can put that right with your sample when you go ahead to do it. So I think we got about 1 more minute. I think maybe it's just me and you, Gloria. I'll sew, you watch. Okay, I feel so quiet. I could have put the music back on. Okay, I think we're good to start. So this is scraps, and I took some. It was regular yardage, so it would have been the same size as a jelly roll strip, and I cut them in half. because I wanted to be able to fold it a few times. And so if you had a fat quarter, you could do the same thing. Now I'm using, this time, earlier I did a bigger one, but I'm taking the smallest strip, which is 1.5. So it ends up being 1. So let me set that out of the way. I got a little bit of batting up my strips, and I cut, these are actually kind of cut too big because I was going to do a bigger squares, and then I decided I wanted to show something that, oh, I didn't realize I had them going all green down the center. Huh. I didn't plan that. Honestly, I didn't. But that's kind of cool. And if you don't like squares, you can have stripes. How's that? So you could make either one be the front. This is the back, and I made a little place to turn it. So from these pieces, I got the front and the back. And again, like I said, if you could do it either way, and it can be reversible. If you want to, just put some steamer seam right here, a little length of steamer seam, 1/4 inch of it, put it down, and then iron it down. Then it really is reversible. And it's not very big. It's 4 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, by about 6.5. So if you want it bigger, you could add more stripes. I just happen to have a little bit of this, I was going to say 4th of July. That's not it. St. Patrick's Day fabrics. And I just had a little. So I thought, well, what the heck? That's kind of cute. I like it. Works for me. Excuse me. So let me just set that right there. And if you have the strip dies, you'll notice, well, hold on. Let's see if light went out on my machine there. Is that, okay, you can see it there. You'll notice on each end that there's no blade to cut. And that's because you're doing strips, so you wouldn't want to cut the ends off, because then you'd have rectangles, you wouldn't have strips anymore. So, and it has, the sizes are, so these are the cut sizes. So 1.5, so it would finish 1. 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, and 5 are the sizes. So the 5 and the 4 would make great for the borders, and I use the 2.5 for my binding when I do binding. And I promised to do one more, show the Go cutter. That's the smallest electric Gemini cutter, and it has it's 3-inch wide plates. Same kind of plates, but just 3 inches wide. And you can do some of these projects with the small one, because I know some people just have a small one and not sure what they can do. Now, so you could do, I believe it's the first 3. So the last ones, yeah, it's the first. So you could do the first 3 if you had to go. So, if you got the Go and you're saving up to get a bigger one, it wouldn't hurt to get those now, because you could use them. So what I want to do is, I want to put my clear plate and my metal plate. Let me get the ones I did out of the way. And I did them ahead because the Go is, it's slower to cut. So I thought, I know some of you have the regular big Gemini, and I figured you'd be way ahead of me. So this one, so this just makes it. But I need to, no matter how big my plate is, I need to make sure that this end and the end here are not on the fabric, because remember, we need to cut right up to we want to cut right up to the edge. So I'm just gonna fold this down. And see how it doesn't matter as long as how it folds, because it's going to be one long piece. I mean, it matters that you fold it straight. That's always helpful. This strip's a little wide, but that's okay. So I'm going to come down a little bit and then just back up. So I just, made a little, it probably shows better from this side. So you don't have to, my point is you don't have to fold it all, like the one fold has to match this fold and it has to match this end. That's not necessary. You just want to make sure it's straight as can be, as much as you can. You want it straight. Now, when you're cutting strips with the strip die, it's not straight of grain. So normally when you cut strips, you cut from the selvage, which is this little end right here, up to the other selvage, which is the length of the fabric. And so you do the same thing when you're cutting with a cutting machine. It's the same idea. So the selvage is here, right along here. And so my die is going this way. And I just want to make sure that I always try to have a little hanging off each end. That's probably more than needs to be hanging off. Now your blade on the left and right do go to the end, but you just want, so if you were like that would be fine. Okay. I just kind of exaggerated a little bit so you could see it. Okay, and then it's your plastic plate and your clear plate on top. And let me get the little go. And it is a little whiny. I'll try to hide the noise. Okay, so I'll do the next one behind me because that is kind of whiny, and I'm sure through the microphone it's not pleasant. I'm sorry. I just wanted the people that had to go to see that it really does work. So there's my little strip, and as you can see, it's one long strip. And I probably got enough actually to get another one out of that. And then let me just do one more. So I'm going to turn my plates the same as I normally do on the big machine. And I'm going to line up on this side. I'm trying to move. I'm trying to make sure that I move the. I always keep the die in the same spot. It's funny now. This one, the plastic one, holds up really well. I'll say that now and watch something happen. But I've used it quite a bit, and it holds up pretty well. So go ahead and get yours cut if you're cutting along. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Rhonda. Okay, I promise no more whining for a while. Not me, I still whine, but. And I just have a little, remember I told you if you ever have it, it's just one thread. Don't yank it, it'll make a run in your fabric like the old days of runs in your in your nylons. So if you were cutting these, I would probably cut my fabric 2 inches. Oh, wait a minute, let me get where you can see me. 2 inches, so you have a little on each side. And you really, you'd only have that that little edge of waste, and that generally, to me, that's generally what I have to cut off, or even more, just to get my fabric straight on one side. So when you cut strips to use, they don't have to be cut perfectly. So if you ever cut some strips and they're not perfect, save them for projects like this. So let me set this all aside. Okay, I got to remember the stuff. That stuff's behind me. And I'm just going to lay these out in whatever order I want to have them on my, whatever I'm making. And this can be a quilt block. And I try to have all my salvages down one end. See the bigger salvage? I try to have that down one end. And I have to look without my glasses to see which is the right side. Now, if you're working with fat quarters, you won't always have that big salvage because you might have the other half of it where you have the smaller salvage. So we're going to set up to sew. We're going to sew these strips together, and then I'll show you how we get into the squares without having to. Can you imagine sewing 1-inch squares? Can you imagine cutting 1-inch squares? I couldn't cut them. I'd have to cut them on the Gemini. Okay, so you get yours in whatever order you want. I've got regular sewing thread in. I've got a 70, I'm having a moment, 80, 12, 70, 10. I don't know which number you use. Microtex needle in. That's what I use for piecing. I'm on my Baby Lock Solaris, so I'm using stitch under the Q tab, and a lot of the Baby Lock and Brother machines have the Q tab on the window, and it's had to go look. It's Q-02. And again, it's for other Baby Lock Brother machines that are smaller. It is it's one of the stitches. It's a straight stitch, and it has the letter P for piecing, because that's what it's for. And you'll see that that the stitch that shows is just a little right of center, and quite a few of the machines have that stitch somewhere in there. So you can find it, and if you use that stitch, you have to use your J foot. If you're using your 1/4-inch foot with a guide, you want to leave your needle in the middle, because the 1/4-inch foot with a guide is a single hole foot, which means there's just room enough for the needle to go down through. You can't move the needle left or right. So let's get sewing. I don't know if I can. All right, there we go. Oh. Hold on. That was me. Tip my camera over. Okay, having technical difficulties already. That was just me tipping my camera over. So let me put it back to the work table while I fix it so it doesn't make you dizzy. Okay, sorry about that. Is everybody still with me? That was exciting, wasn't it? There we go. All right. Here's my hand. So the camera tripod is right next to here. And I hit it with my hand when I went over. All right, let's get sewing. So we're going to line up 2 strips, lining up along the edge and along the top. Now, some strips, depending on the fat quarter or whatever fabric you have, some might be longer. They might not all be the same size. Okay, so we're going to do like a scant 1/4 inch, which is a little less than a 1/4 inch. Is that too bright? Hold on. Well, that's too dark. Okay. I just noticed that the camera jumped up its brightness all of a sudden because I really did test it before I came on. Now you notice I'm not pinning because I'm doing remember how I showed you how grab your fabric with your thumb underneath and then turn your palm towards you. So see how I am and how the fabric can kind of can feed through? Except I'm a little further back. I think I must have moved my strip a little crooked because a little bit of it's sticking out there. And just keep checking that your fabric's nice and straight together on your right hand side. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that it's better to iron press as you go. But I'm going to go ahead and sew this whole thing because I know that's what will happen. And I'll show you how to press when it's all done. So because I ended down here, I'm going to start my next one at down here. So let me go to the work table. And I'm gonna move my camera, my machine camera back a little bit so that you can see it, how I feed it through. Okay, so I ended down at this end, and you can see they're not the same. That's okay. So if you were pressing now, you press, and then just take the nose of your iron and try to stay away from the edges. Or you could use your roller. But I want to do this one without any pressing because we all do that. We get going and sewing away, and then we go, oh yeah, I should have pressed. Oh. Probably should have pressed so it would stay open. And this is the end that I started at, and I want to have that. I'm trying to have them all even down this end. Now with this smaller project, if you sewed each strip the same way, that would be fine. Oh, thanks, Ron, to let me know you're still here. Everybody's still here. Okay. You could stitch them all the same way because there's not that many of them. But I always say, try to keep the habit of stitching down one time and back up the next time. Because if you're doing a lot of strips, it'll start to arc a little bit. And we don't want that. So because I want to start at this end, the only downfall to that is that I have to have the one strip on the bottom. It feels odd to me, but it really makes no difference because you still have to line them. You still have to line them up. So I get the beginning lined up so I can get this under my needle, and then I get my hand situated. So let's go sew. So I'm going to do a few stitches because you remember, I'm using the pivot feature on my machine. If you don't have the pivot, a lot of machines still have that needle down position. So when you take your foot off the foot control, the needle goes down. Your foot might not lift up, but your needle goes down. And that needle going down is, I call that my third hand. Okay, so here we go. So my thumb is underneath. Oh, see it? So my fabric is in between. And I'm just going to turn it so that my palm is facing me. And I'm going to go back a little ways. And the fabric can feed through. And if I need to adjust my hand, I'll do that. I still sew with two hands, so my other hand's right here. And then if I get a little close, I'm just going to come back a little ways and keep checking that my two fabrics, see, are together. I'm getting pretty good now. I'm standing up, sewing with one foot on my pedal, one foot standing up, and I got both my hands being used. And I'll say that, and then I'll just tip over. So I'm just coming down the end, making sure I'm lined up. And I'm lined up this way. I'm not going to be lined up across the bottom because they might not be the same length. You notice I'm still hanging on until my fabric is past my needle. Okay, so I think you can see me right here. I'm just going to open this up again. And I'm going to start at the end. Remember we started with the big salvages? So I'm going to start my last one down there. And you notice I'm not taking time to line up the whole strip because I just have to line it up again anyway. If I need to, I just pull the fabric because what happens is the underneath one wants to go, this particular one wants to go to the right. So I don't need to adjust my top one. I need to adjust my bottom one. So I'm just giving it a little tug to the left. You notice that I don't keep sewing without stopping. There's no prize at the end of the strip because you didn't stop the whole way. The prize might be that you wished you'd stopped somewhere along the way. Okay, so back to the work table. Okay, so you've done all this, and you can do as many strips as you want. If you remember, we use the 1.5 inch strip, which means the squares are 1 inch. So you can figure how, if you wanted it 6 inches, you need 6 strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Make sense? Which would add this way. Because here's our row. So if we made the row longer, added more strips, that would give us the width. Now, maybe you'll have to do more than one strip set. You might have to use like the width of fabric. Okay. And of course, this is going to be 10 times harder on this little mat. But what I want to do, so this is going to open up this way. I don't want to do this because it's not going to work. And I need to set my stitches. I don't want to start with the first one because then I have to bend it back to do the second one. And then whatever I did is all wrinkled. So I want to start back with the first seam. And you would have this stretched out on your ironing board. So it wouldn't, you could do it, you wouldn't have to move it like I'm going to have to move it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set my stitches. So I'm staying away from the next strip. Okay? And I can iron up and down this because I'm right on the seam, nothing's going to happen. But now what I want to do, and again, this is much easier when you have an ironing board, is what I want to do is I want to push forward with my iron. Let me open it up a little bit. I'm just going to push this forward. Okay? So you're going to use, I'm going to call it the nose. You're just going to use the nose. And I'm not on the back part. And I can see exactly where I've done because this is kind of puffy. But what I want to do is I just want to make sure I push this way so I don't get a crease here. My cord's getting in the way. So if you want to just lift it a little, okay? Then we have to fold back to the next seam and do it again. And this may seem slow and tedious, but it's because I'm on a slow and tedious little mat. On your ironing board, you'd be all done by now. And I want all the seams hold on, so I was trying to see which way my iron wasn't as hot as usual, so I was just double checking it. Sorry, I forget sometimes that I'm not by myself. excuse me, we want all the seams going one way, and you'll see why in a few minutes. So now I'm going to open this up, and I'm pushing down the black one now. And now I got a little more to work with. Now I think we could go ahead and do part of this and then just tip that over at the same time. Here we go. Just try to stay away from the edges. Okay, so I'm going to do this part first, then I'll come along and do the white one. And to make sure I'm lifting up. Okay, and then let me I'm getting tangled up in my cord here. There we go. And so I want to be more towards this middle and staying away from the edges. I can't hurt the middle, but I can make the edges stretch out. Ideally, if you're at your ironing board, this should be nice and straight when you press. And I always turn it over just to double check, make sure all my seams are going in one direction. And I would, if I'm by myself, I would do more of this than ironing, but I'm trying to be a little quicker so that you're not just staring at somebody ironing. Okay, so now comes the cool part. So I need I'm gonna cut these salvages off. And if I was on the regular Gemini, I might not bother because I would have so much plate space. I'm going to get my die again. And what we're going to do this time is we're going this way. See? And that's what's going to give us. So these are little strips cut with this die. Because in order to have a square, you've got to go the same way in both directions. So if my strip was 2, I would still be using my strip and turn it in the, what is that? Is that 90 degrees? You want it to be the same size if you want squares. We good so far? Now we have to keep in mind that there's seams under here. So when we start folding this to cut, we don't want to fold too many. And I think I used only half. So if I'm using the Gemini Junior or the big one, I can have this hanging off the end. But with the Go, because this is the end, I can't have anything hanging off there. So I'm just going to do, I've got it folded twice. And again, I would get a little closer together, so I didn't have, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So let me do, well, let me try this. I do 2 and 2 and 2, right? 2, 2, 2. Because I had enough left. Which way did I turn this? I turned this way. So I need enough for 2 of those. 2, and again, you know, you wouldn't normally take this long. I'm trying to make the most of the fabric with using the go, and you can see, you know, having the bigger die cutting machine, you could just have some hanging off the end. So I'm gonna live on the edge and cut that. For my back. So cross your fingers, and I'm going to run this through twice, because I think 3 times, if I remember, 3 times was too, 3 folds was too much for the little go. Okay. So don't think it's that much work when you're using your bigger machine. I just really wanted to, someone asked me about if we could do this with the go. And you notice, oops, sorry. You notice I'm straight on my fabric, but I can be angled on my plate, because it's easier for the machine to take this at the angle than it is straight on. Okay, so block your ears because it's going to whine. You'll have to let me know just how bad the sound is, so I... Okay, that was too much for it. So let me take off one piece. And that's only because of the all the seams. My rotary cutter doesn't even like it. Now hopefully I can get that back in the, I don't think it cut it all. There we go. So the machine spit it back out. So there's my, is that 2 of them? Uh-oh, hope I'm going to have enough. I'm going to make you screech through that again. How many have I got here? Oh, I should have done 3 and 3. All right, let's try this. I've got enough length here. I'm going to stagger my seams just a little bit. I just want to make sure. So I just staggered my seams so all the seams aren't on top of one another. Let's see how that works. And if you do have too much, the machine will just stop and kick it back out again. Oh, it made it. Okay, I promise that's all the screeching for tonight. Oh, and I just have one little, it's actually the stitching. And that was all that was left over. All right. So how's that? There's all our little pieces. And all I did was turn them opposite of each other. Oh. So just to kind of go over what I did when I cut, and you may do the same thing on your bigger machine, is instead of having the seams right on top of each other, I just moved them the width of the seam. I moved one up, one down, and then it was fine. So now we have to sew these all together. Does anybody have any questions before I go further? Was the machine screeching really screechy? Because it was screechy to me. So I'm just going to sew these in pairs. And then put the pairs together. And again, however long, if you want it taller, you need, oh, sorry, wrong side. If you want it taller, you need more strips. Same color, different color, you just need more strips. If you make bigger squares, you probably still will need more strips. I mean, you'll need more length of the strips you have. But I don't know, I kind of liked it at the 1 inch because it looked like I really worked hard. So taller, more strips. Wider, more sets, which is more strips too. More strips, let me see, more strips sewn together, and then a strip set would be like this, then you'd need more, this is a strip set. So if you want more strips, you add on to this. If you need width or length, whichever way you call that, then you need more strip sets. Does that make sense? Okay. And hopefully I left myself enough for the back. Now, when we ironed or pressed all our seams in one direction, when we rotated this all the way around, now the seams that were headed to the white, these are headed to the white, these are headed to the white. Because we turned it, now this set of seams is going the opposite way. So when we fold these over, we can automatically nestle those side by side. And if you look back on some of the earlier, when we did the Christmas runner for the Gemini, I really went into detail of that. So one seam is to the right, one seam is to the left, and that's what lines these squares up so they're even. And to me, this is too small to pin, but you can pin if you want to when I'm not looking. So let's go sew. So my only concern right now is making sure I have that first seam from under and on top. I have them nestled together. That get bright again? Honest to God. That's not too bad. Once I'm past that seam, I'm going to pick it up and nestle the next two seams, and you can feel them and make sure that it goes all the way across and you're still lined up along the edge. And then the next one nestled in, and you can even here, I'll do it this way. You can even peek and see that they're nestled together, and your end should also be matching. I feel like I was getting a space. I could feel a space between the two seams. I still feel it. And make sure your seam allowance, because it's facing towards the presser foot, stays down. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get my next set ready. Didn't mean to go quite that fast. And then my last pair, and I'm just feeling along this whole seam allowance here. Okay, so let's see how we're doing. So we got it all sewn. First round. And we might as well press them all in the same direction. So I'm putting them all so the seam allowance is on the right. So the same one is on top. And see how can you see how they all line up? A little bumpy with the roller. If you want to do this with your iron, because I know you're going to sneak and do it, I still would use my press first, and then I would just that's it. Okay. I would still use my roller and I'm pushing that seam a little bit to the right. Sometimes when you have a lot of seams like this, you do have the urge to press it because it really doesn't want to stay open just because there's so many seams back there. And then I'm going to turn it over just to make sure that the whole seam is going in one direction. I have to say that this part, the little iron does come in handy. So now we just have to sew these 3 pieces together. So I'm just going to do like we always do. I'm turning the page of the book. I'm just going to flip. Now, if you want to pin, make sure you get your seams in place. Put your pin so it's a little past. See, here's my seam. I don't want to pin in the seam. I'm going to find the next one. And I really want to make sure that I feel the whole way down to make sure that is staying straight. I'm way off there. So I took that one out because I was way off at the end. I had like a 1/4 inch of fabric hanging down the bottom here. And I just want to make sure I double check my first one. Okay, so now I'm good. I wanted to look and double check my first one to make sure that's not where I was off. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew. Holding my fabric while I pull that pin out. Holding my fabric, pulling the pin out. Oops, I went a little crooked there at the end. I was trying to find my speed controls behind the camera. And I'm going to go ahead and of course the roller works better when you're on a hard surface. Oh, I didn't switch over. Sorry. Here we go. The roller doesn't work as well when it's on the cushiony surface as it does on the nice hard surface. And then I'm just going to add one more on. So I'll even pin again for you. This is for you, Lynn. I'm pinning for you. Not pining for you, pinning for you. So I'm going to go down to the other end and then I'll work the middle. Because what I want to do is make sure this stays straight along the bottom. So see, I want to make sure I'm straight there, not just here. So today for this project, you're allowed 3 pins. How's that? 3 pins, Lynn, that's it. 3 pins. Okay? So let's go sew. And my 2 ends are even. This whole corner is even. And you know, I have to put my pins away. Right. Okay, back to the work table. And now I'm done sewing, so I always want to give it a press. But again, I want to press. And I'm making sure I don't have any creases. Okay, so that's done. Any questions, anybody? Are you still there? I want to just even up my edges. So my ruler is straight this way. It's also straight along here following a seam. And I just get rid of a little. But see, doesn't that makes it look nicer? I don't care what size this turns out to be. I mean, I care, but it isn't like it's a block. This doesn't happen to be a block in a quilt that has to be exactly the same as other blocks are. So every time I lay my ruler down, I'm checking both ways. So I don't have so much here, but I do want to look across the top and the bottom and then try to follow along a seam. And so it's just some little straggles, but See how it just makes it look neater. So, see, I did these in a different order. You'll have to, we'll have to take a vote of if you like 1 or 2. I'm voting for 1, I think. I'm not sure. Okay, so now we want to turn this into something. So I have to look at what fabric I have left, and I need to fold it in half because I need 2 pieces. And when I fold it in half, I want to make sure that I make the ends straight. But it's no wonder my cutter didn't want to go through that. My rotary cutter doesn't want to go through it either. Kind of looks like the beaver's got it. Okay, so I can have my strips going this way or this way. I guess because I did this one different, maybe I should do it. I'm going to still do it the other way, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. So I'm going to have it going this way. And the reason is, so I need 2. So I can cut this right in half. So let me do that first, and then I'll tell you the reason. I'll leave you in suspense for a minute. So I'm just taking my ruler. Look, that's not going to work, is it? I'm taking my ruler. Let's see if I can cut backwards here. Can you see how I just have a sliver there? Because all I'm really doing is cutting off the fold. And see how the little pieces left? So now I have 2 pieces. That was pretty funny. I was going to cut with that. Okay, so the reason I decided to have my stripes going this way is because I need to fold under a little bit on each one so I don't have a raw edge here, because I'm doing I want to sew all the way around and turn it right side out through this. So if I did them this way, I can do it. I could do it. Oh, what the heck, I'll give it a whirl. I was going to say, I've just got seams there. But let's see if I fold that under about a 1/2 inch. And you could press that. I'm gonna clip these. And I want the other one to overhang, and I want to make sure that they're going in the same direction. So I'm going to line that up with the edge. I got to see the edge here. I'm going to line that up with the edge. And see, I have plenty. So if I just fold this over, and I'm going to go ahead and press it because of all those seams. I want to flatten it out. And again, I'm just pressing. So that stays down. I really don't even have to pin that now. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want to make sure I'm going in the same direction. I'm going to fold that under about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little less. And you would give it a shot of steam. Oh, Gloria, you voted on the first one? Me too. Oh, and I folded that a little crooked. Let's see if you can see it. And you see how it's bowing in on me. Okay, you and I voted, Gloria, so I guess we're right. First one. So make sure when you fold, I still feel like it's crooked. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, it's out of the camera. Okay. All right. So we've got our two pieces and they're going to overlap to be on the back. So I just want to measure everybody. So I'm going to the edge. And I'm going to the edge. And look, I've got plenty there. Because I'm overlapped by a probably 1.5 inches. So that's plenty. Now I need some batting. And see, this is just some odds and ends batting that I keep. I'm going to take these two guys off. And I am going to put my fabric down. My top piece down. And I'm just going to cut it to fit. So I'm not cutting my fabric at all, but I want to make sure again my ruler is straight. So to me, this is easier than measuring and cutting and hoping you got it right. All of that. Okay, does anybody have any questions yet? You're an awful quiet group tonight. Okay, so my batting is always going to be on the bottom because my feed dogs can feed that batting through very easy. I would have to put a Teflon foot on my sewing machine if I put the batting facing up. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch these down. So let's head over to the machine. And I'm just going to stitch those two. Uh-oh, I got this wrong. Oh no, scared myself. They're facing each other. Okay, let's go sew. And I'm going to sew from the back so I can see exactly where I need to be. And I am trying to keep the same distance on my of the fabric to my foot, so it's about 1/8 of an inch past my foot because I really would like to have a nice straight line. So that one's done. Now we'll do this one. And I can see my little end is not quite straight. So I'm just going to pull it over a little. Because this is what, this is what happens in real life. Well, I'm just going to try to pull it over. There we go. And I didn't do it on the other one so you could see. Whoop. Well, let's go to the work table so you can see what I'm talking about. So see on this one? Can you see that this one all of a sudden goes uphill? And I could tell when I was at the back, and I normally would stop and fix it, but can you see how this edge of this fabric is out past here? Well, that means it's not straight. See how it is a little bit past? So I should have stopped, but I wanted you to see how that looked, and I'll put this one underneath so it doesn't show. But you can see that the little edge of this fabric right here should be even with this piece, this whole strip right here. Okay? But it's not your prom dress. So I left that for two reasons. One, to show you what happens. And if I had done that and it mattered, it was on top, I'm going to show, yes, I would pull it out and fix it. But I'd only pull it out back a ways. I wouldn't go do the whole thing over. I got that right once. I don't have to try that twice. I would just come back a little ways and straighten it out. And you'd probably have to take it to the iron and press it. So, whichever fabric you put down first is going to be the one that shows here. Okay? So, right side up of your front, and then right sides together with your back. The piece that goes down first is going to be the one that's on the outside here. So I can take my not so good one and put it down second because it's not going to show. Make sense? Okay? Double check that they're overlapped so you can see here's one, here's the other, so you can see the distance is, inch and a half. And that's fine. I think this one was about an inch. And then I want to clip because it's too much to to pin through. I'm going to make sure I clip right where they meet together, where they overlap each other. And I can see I have a piece of fabric. See it? Hanging down. So I can take my rotary cutter and just cut that off. And notice, see where I pinned and I flipped it? So I got to pay attention to that. Clip. So whenever you clip and pin, make sure you look at both sides. Okay? So now we're going to go all the way around. So we don't want to start where all the seams are. So we'll start over here, go all the way around, and then come over your stitching a little bit, and then lock your stitches. So you don't need to lock your stitches to start with, because then you'd have lock stitches on top of lock stitches. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions? I can see my fabric is a little off there. And that bad edge is hanging off. So we're going to say goodbye to the bad edge. There we go. He's gone. And remember, this fabric is underneath. It's not going to show. Okay, any questions before I sew the last part? That means I'm taking a drink. Oh, I went through the whole big glass of water. Okay, so start on either side. Just don't start on the side where the seams are. So I'm going to start along here. I don't want to start at the beginning of this. So I'm going to start, let's start here. We'll start here, and then we'll head around, right? So let's go sew the last seam. I'm going to switch back to my regular straight stitch, so that's 1-03, because I don't want a scant 1/4 inch. I want my full 1/4 inch. Just in case any little culprits are not out to the edge. When I think I'm at the edge, I'm going to turn. If I'm not, I'll turn it back, take another stitch. So stop early, not late. I'm going to watch these seams because these seam allowances are facing towards the presser foot, so the presser foot could push them up. So I'm just going to take my time. And if I need to, I have my pivot so I can get right in there. Now, when I have my fingers here, my foot is not hanging over or on my foot pedal. My 2 feet are planted on the floor. I'm not into sewing my needles through my fingers. That's a tale that I can live without telling. I'm going to come to the end again. See, I turned too early. Excuse me. I want to make sure that my underneath fabric isn't pushing out, and there's no reason why it should. Too early. Too early. This time, all my seams were facing towards me, so the presser foot wouldn't lift them up. Now, I'm coming up on where the overlap is, but the overlap will flip back. My presser foot might push it back, where on this side we were going that way. That wouldn't happen. So I got to pay attention. I got to be mindful of that. I'm going to go right over my other stitching and then just lock my stitch. Oh, wrong pedal. Okay, so let's go to the work table because we're all done. You guys are so quiet. Did you fall asleep on me? So I'm going to go ahead and, so I've stitched all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and trim it to, I'm just going to trim it. If it's over a 1/4, I want to be just under a 1/4. So my 1/4 inch mark is going to be, let's see if I can show it because this is on white, so it might show. So my 1/4 inch mark, can you see my, no, maybe not. This 1/4 inch mark right here is just below the stitches. Let's see if I can show it on, let's see if it'll show on the other camera. Let's see. No, it's too dark over there. I guess you'll have to kind of take my word for it. So here's your... Okay, so here's my 1/4 inch mark right here. So if you don't know where your 1/4 is, find your half and then go back halfway. And see how it's a little longer than the one next to it? So it's by 1/8, except the half has a longer line, the 1/4 has a like a dash, and then the 1/8 has barely anything at all. And I'm just going to go under that a little, just a tad. I don't know if my little rotary cutter will. Oh yeah. And just trim some of that off. That was so. Some of them are because you do better on some than others. Seams, I mean. I find sometimes if I trim down to 1/8, I don't care for it. It doesn't sit well. And then I'm going to take my corners and I'm going to clip. So I clip my corners off. And I do them a little bit. Well, that looks pretty good. You can see that pretty good. I do them at a longer angle instead of just a short stub like that. You see the difference? See, that one's a short one. This one's kind of longer. All right, and then we're ready to turn it right side out, but let's give it a little press. All right, I'll stop cleaning. And if I have my big steam iron, I'm really going to steam away, especially the edges. And you got to get all these little threads off because when you turn it, they could show. So we're just going to turn one side first. And poke our little edges out, our corners out. Then turn the other side. It's just easier to address that first one before you turn the second one over, because see, this would now be in your way to get up in there with your point turner. And we're done. So now we want to give it a press. And when we press, we want to make sure that we're not pressing any of the back part to the front. So when I press, I'm kind of pushing out so that you can't see the back. And I would especially, having my big iron, I would especially steam the edges hot, because that just helps flatten out the batting that's in that seam allowance. So there we are. Let me turn it this way. Shove everybody out of your way. So there we are. Now, that looks like a checkerboard. This looks like it's stripes. So I wouldn't want to go through all that and not have my checkerboard. This one, I think, looks like the shamrocks are just floating all over the place. Even though they're really just here, well, there's a little bit there, they kind of look like they're floating. And so, excuse me, that's the horizontal stripes. There's the vertical stripes. So I'll put it a little closer if you want to take a picture in case you can't decide right now what you want to do. So I'll hold it there for a minute. Yeah, that's voila, we're done. Okay, and then I'll flip it over. I know sometimes I like to have pictures of things, but separate them, but really two totally different looks. So you can see the squares up close, but doesn't that look, this is more checkerboardy, that's more stripe. And I like to try to do them a couple different ways so that you can see what you like, so you don't have to make it and then take it apart again. This one looks, I don't know if I took a deeper seam, but this one looks, yeah, this guy's just a tad shorter because I took a shorter seam on this one. That tad, maybe 1/8 of an inch difference. Okay, so there we have tonight's lesson, and we used the strip dies, and I have to say these weren't costly at all. I'm not sure, don't hold me to it, but I want to say like maybe $45. I can't remember, and it could be less if it's on sale. But you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sizes, and I said before, now these are the cut sizes, not the finish. So take a 1/2 inch off for finished. So 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 4, and 5. And to have that many choices, to have that many choices of sizes of strips for that kind of price, that's really inexpensive. And on this one, because I leave it in here, I just cut the top off so I can pull it in and out. It's just, to me, it was easier to leave them like that. And I can keep them right with my, what do you call them? Builder blocks. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining in. If you're still there, you're kind of a quiet group tonight. So let's see who I can see. Thanks, Gloria. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Rhonda. Did I get everybody? I think so. I think I got everybody. Oh, Lynn, you like the strip cutter? It wasn't too expensive, if I recall. I believe it wasn't too expensive. When it comes to dyes, and especially fabric dyes and strip dyes and all that, because you got so many sizes in one, it's kind of handy. So if you don't have any rectangles and you need a rectangle, you just have to remember it's not going to cut the top and bottom. So if you need rectangles, you'll probably want to cut your strip the width you need and then go ahead and do your rectangles. So, okay, thanks again for everyone for joining in, and I'll see you Saturday at 1. And I was going to sneak and show you something, but I don't have it right at my hand, so you'll have to see it hopefully tomorrow. So Saturday at 1 p.m. We're working on an Easter basket. Or an Easter basket. So until then, everybody stay warm and have a good evening, and I'll see you Saturday at 1. Otherwise, I'll see you next Thursday at 7. Thanks a lot. Bye.